Golf Central on YouTube is brought to you by the new Paradigm Woods and Irons from Callaway.
Grant, great to see you. What was the discussion Sunday night, TV compound? Lilia Vu wins her second major of the year.
Yeah, Damon, the talk was that finally someone broke that trend that we've had for the last several years. 21 of the last 22 majors had gone to different winners. Minjee Lee is the only other one who had won multiple majors in that stretch. And now Lilia Vu has won 2 in the same year. We've been waiting for someone to assert their dominance in the women's game. We've seen Jin Young Ko be great. We've seen Nelly Korda rise to number 1. Lydia Ko got back there at the end of last year, the beginning of this year. But in terms of winning majors, only Minjee had won more than one over the last 4 years. And now Lilia, who had not won at all of the LPGA Tour coming into the year, has won 3 times 2 majors and ascends to number 1 in the world.
Grant, you mentioned Lilia had not won at all starting this year. So I assume if we went back to January and told you that one American player was going to win 2 majors this year, she wouldn't have been on your list of guesses?
Not necessarily. And the only reason I would say that, Eamon, is because last fall, Lilia played in the final group on Sunday in 3 consecutive LPGA events. She had a terrific season. So did Allison Corpuz, by the way, who also won a major this year. Lilia was trending towards victory. And so you could have sold me on that for sure. I'm not saying I predicted it, but it was not a shock. Lilia, by the time last year ended, had worked her way, inside the top 50 in the world rankings and just kept climbing as the year went on last year after just a completely dreadful, beginning to her LPGA career in 2019, a year in which she only made 1 cut and nearly quit the game. And so for Lilia, though she didn't win to get into the mix, final pair, final group at least, 3 consecutive events, we saw that this potential was there. And certainly what we saw from her as an amateur led us to believe that she could be great. And has she ever been great this year?
Well, 59th in driving distance this season, 2nd in putts per green. What is her superpower, Grant?
Yeah, I think her superpower is in not having any super weakness. How about that? She's 260 plus off the tee, so you say 59th in distance, but she's got plenty of length. There's no shortage of distance for Lilia off the tee. And she is an absolute winner. I mean, she's a collegiate superstar at UCLA. I don't think you forget how to win. We've watched that in the men's and women's games over the year. Lydia Ko did that last year. We saw her rise back to dominance. And so Lilia, when she gets, a chance now, I think she feels like she has at least as good a chance, if not better, than anyone. And I think something's interesting, and Morgan Pressel and I talked about this as she was coming up the 18th hole with, at the time, a 5-shot lead. She made that putt on 18 for a 6-shot victory. When she won in Thailand, she was 6 shots back going into the final round. And she was playing against a couple of Thai players. Natakrita Wongtawilap was leading, and Atthaya Thitikul, who had been number 1 at the end of toward the end of last year. They were up there ahead of her. But I think when you start 6 back, you can let it rip. And if you shoot 73, nobody says, what happened? They just say, you finished whatever you finished. She wins. And then she gets to Chevron, tied for 11th, 4 back, going in to that final round outside Houston. And, she winds up winning a playoff with Angel Yin. That's one thing. It's all credit to her because, as we saw for all those years, as great as Tiger was, he never won a major when coming from behind until he won his last one in 2019. That takes something special. But it's a very different thing when you stand on the first tee in the final game of the day, late tee time on Sunday, and you're in the final game with a player that 99% of the gallery hopes will win and is cheering for to win, Charlie Hull in this case. Stand up there to birdie the toughest hole all week, the second hole. 2 brilliant shots. There were no birdies on the second hole on Saturday, hardly any on Sunday. She had one of them. She took the lead on Sunday with that birdie at 2. She never was even tied the rest of the way. That tells you something about Lilia Vu. So to come from behind, yes, very impressive. But to win from in front on a huge stage with everyone cheering for your opponent, that's sporty.
Certainly going to be interesting, Grant, to see if she is the one who ends this parity that we've been talking about in the women's game over the last couple of years. And in conversations about that, we've tended to focus on people like Jin Young Ko and Nelly Korda. Lydia Ko, who do you think's actually going to have the longest, coldest winter waiting for the majors to come around again? Who's just going to feel a sense of disappointment after the 2023 season?
I think that's a really good question. And you might say Lydia Ko, but I think for Lydia, it's not just the majors that she's frustrated with. Lydia, in many ways, feels lost with her game right now. Extremely happy off the golf course. Got married last December, and I don't think you ever know how someone's going to respond after having something positive like that. But definitely a change in her life. It's a new routine for her with her husband June, and so. You don't know. She won very early on the Ladies European Tour, but it's really had a dreadful LPGA season. Her worst LPGA season, actually, since she joined the tour as a pro 9 years ago. And of course, let's not forget, she won a couple of events as an amateur before she turned pro. In terms of the majors, I'm going to say it's Jin Young Ko. And the reason is Jin Young won 2 majors like Lilia Vu did back in 2019. She hasn't won any since. And Jin Young has won twice this year. Morgan and I talked about this on the broadcast, and Tom Abbott as well. It's been a strange year for Jin Young Ko because though she did win twice early in the season, then in the late spring at the Cognizant Founders Cup when she came from behind to beat Minjee Lee and won in a playoff, we entered the major championship summer. Let's say the Chevron was late April. And she was around. She wound up top 10ing, if memory serves. But it was a backdoor top 10. She was really never in contention. But you go into Baltusrol, and then you go into Pebble Beach and Evian, where she's won before. And then Walton Heath, her caddy Dave Brooker is from England and knows that course. I think you would have certainly said that Jin Young Ko was going to pick off a major for sure. She got to Pebble Beach a week and a half before the championship began, and she shot 79 in the opening round. And it could have been a case in which she maybe over-practiced a little bit. She's had some frustrating injuries, maybe from overwork, a shoulder, a back. She had the wrist injury this time last year. Certainly where she was this time last year when she was taking some time off because of that wrist injury and was really struggling, you'd say she's in a much better place. But I think Jin Young is the one who's feeling the frustration. She was kind of around the mix there at Baltusrol, but didn't have a great weekend. And she actually went into the weekend, at Walton Heath with at least a shot, and did not play her best. What we've seen with Jin Young Ko this year, we've seen the highs, the 2 wins, but we've seen a lower floor than we're accustomed to seeing when she was at her best. To be fair, when she was at her best, she was doing things that literally no one has done in the history of golf. 114 straight holes without a bogey, 63 straight greens in regulation, silly stuff. So maybe that's an unfair comparison. She's fine. Jin Young Ko's fine. But to your question, longest winter, it's going to be late April before the next major. I think it's Jin Young Ko.
Well, it's a compelling week at Walton Heath. Grant, thanks so much for the time today.
Damon, Eamon, great to talk to you. Cheerio.